Christian, without any further ado, the stage is yours. Welcome up.
Thank you.
Take it away.
So, yeah, what's the most interesting thing with blockchain? It's an impossible question to answer. Thank you. I've been working with BTCX, which is Bitcoin or cryptocurrency exchange, for 7 years now. And I decided last summer, okay, I want to step down and do something else. And suddenly I have a daughter 3 months back. So, but she's not a blockchain, fortunately. But I have been taking a lot of time to look at the space. What is going on? What is happening? And there's so much going on. And since I bought the Tesla, I've been intrigued by energy. So, and I'm a physicist by education. So I'm kind of used to play around with energy. So, and I see like, okay, what's in the energy sector? We have the solar panel revolution. The price is going like this, and the efficiency is going like this, and in a few years, all of you will have an electrical vehicle. It's also like, how do we facilitate a system where you also have solar panels on your roof? Basically, you will produce more power than you spend. So we will have a distributed, decentralized power energy grid. I was like, wow, this is so cool. I want to do this. Okay, blockchain, perfect. Check. And then I went to Consensus last week. I actually flew in this morning. So if I fell asleep in a few minutes, it's the jet lag, like bam. And I met these wonderful guys, young entrepreneurs, living a dream, angry at Facebook, selling their data. It's like, yeah, we're gonna tokenize and digitalize all your information. We will have a blockchain solution, and they said like this. Okay, the only sad thing with this that we are unable to get the information we need because Facebook owns it. And then he looked at me, but you're in Europe, right? It's like, yeah. And you have GDPR. Like, yeah, it's a headache. But then he said, it's the magical fairyland. I will move to Europe because it means that all the governments, banks and companies have to give out their information. So basically, in Europe, we have a magical like future where all of you can tokenize your information and monetize on it. I was like, oh yeah, this is really, really cool. I want to do that as well, and have the energy blockchain, and then there was this third blockchain idea I had also. So I decided like, okay, no, I'm gonna just relax for a while and enjoy with you guys, and we'll see what happens.
Wonderful. Yeah, how many of you have heard of BTCX, by the way? Of course, you have
awesome.
98% market share here. Wonderful. But so you just got back from Consensus.
Yeah.
What did you learn from there, apart from the energy sector and the guys you meet? What's exciting that we can learn from there?
So what I learned from there, it's really huge. I mean, I've been there every year. Last year, it was the financial institutions. Like the CEO of Fidelity said, Bitcoin and cryptocurrency is the future. I mean, this is the CEO of one of the biggest financial institutions in the world. This year, it was the CEO of FedEx who said, blockchain will revolutionize the transportation or shipping logistic all over the place. And not all over the place, because that's how it is today, but the opposite. So I think like it's really happening. Last year it was in finance, and now it's in transportation. So it just continues to grow and grow, and it's becoming too big to grasp.
I agree. Basically. Thank you, Christian. Have a seat.
Yes.
We have lots to talk about. Thank you for your time.
You want to hear?
So the next speaker is also a champion of women and champion of sort of being a role model for girls, for young girls, being an influencer and being an investor. She started Nordic Tech House that invests in companies. And today the news came out that they've invested in one of an interesting company that's here. She's going to tell you more about it and all about her story. Come up, Isabella. Welcome.
So where do you want me?
Somewhere there.
Here?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's funny, I didn't know Larry was also your bodyguard, so he just came up with you. You have the pool with you. So tell us, you've done a lot of things since you were 16, or a little earlier even, if I remember. But take us through sort of a quick intro of what you see with blockchain and entrepreneurship. And yeah, let's start there.
Let's start there. I can start with my own journey. I think most of you maybe know who I am, but today I run the biggest blog in the whole Scandinavia with 1.5 million readers. I started when I was 14 years old. This year I was awarded as the most powerful businesswoman in Sweden.
Woo!
So. And I think it's cool, start with the nickname Blondinbella, a very silly one, and start from there, building your own blog, taking photos of yourself and everything you eat, and then become and get that kind of prize. So I think it's important for me to show other young women all over the world that you can, start with a blog or being an influencer and make something great of it. So that's my story. And today, we have a lot of companies. We actually launched a new one today, and they are here. So it's within Nordic Tech House. So yeah.
What is Nordic Tech House? A quick version.
Nordic Tech House is we're helping companies being more digital. So it can be, and we help them to grow. It can be like a big one, and they don't need where to start, like in the digital world with social media, but it can also be, for example, with the natural cycles. I invested in that company quite early, year one.
How many of you know natural cycles? Such a guy's audience here. How many of you know natural cycles? You do? Oh, wonderful, wonderful. I'm wrong. I take myself.
So, for example, it's a great example. They have like a great idea. They have built a company. They have raised money and everything, but they need to find the consumer and to have a greater awareness and everything. So then they come to me and we can use my channels to release the company. So Nordic Tech Hubs, we're working very close to, I think we're 8 companies right now, and helping them, with better contact with all the consumers.
Yeah. Full disclosure, she's invested in one of my companies as well. So
Yeah.
Fitness Collection. So it's good to work with you guys. So wonderful. And what do you want to get out of the chat today, Bella?
I always, want to be where young women mostly aren't. And, I started to buy stocks when I was young. To talk about blockchain in my blog is not so common. So many, girls, 25, they don't know what it is. They're afraid of new things. And it's important for me to be that kind of bridge, to tell them how to buy your stocks, how to buy your Bitcoin, or what blockchain are, because sometimes they're thinking that it's too hard, it's too, a small group of people knows about it, and so I want to learn so I can, give back.
Wonderful.
And I think you can compare being an influencer with blockchain, because how to get big as an influencer, you need to work with 2 things. That is trust, and that is transparency. So you have to work and build on that transparency and they have to trust you, and everything has to be open. And I want the society to look the same. Because I have 2 children, and if in the future, if I'm going to tell them that we had a society here in Sweden when we have central banks, we have a few people all around the world that had all the control of our money, they're going to think that I'm crazy showing a picture of Stefan Ingves and said that he was controlling our money here in Sweden. And I believe in a country where it's more open and not so hidden. And to be honest, I've earned a lot of money during my years, but I've lost 30% of my net worth because of the weak currency. Yeah. So, I believe in a more like a global currency without having a government doing crazy stuff, like creating new money, for example. They are helping industrial companies survive because of a a cheap currency. We have an extremely householding market here in Sweden that always, it's only sustainable because of the currency that we have in Sweden. They're doing so, like, I don't believe in that kind of system how to run a world. So I want to be a part of that kind of change, reclaim the power of our money back. And if I can do that within Nordic Tech House, invest in smart people, invest in smart ideas, I want to do that.
Wonderful. What a nice story. What a nice purpose. Thank you, Bella. Have a seat. Have a seat. And finally, Larry, so happy to have you back. Please come up. Applause for Larry as well. Have a seat. So I need to change with one of you. Why don't Larry, you sit there and I'll sit here.
Okay, thank
you. We need to keep this Kavlan feel going apparently. So I'll continue with you, Bella. So you speak a lot about sort of women and empowerment and entrepreneurship. Why don't we start there? You've been building companies for a long time. You run Löwengrip Care and Color, employ a lot of people, profitable.
Yeah.
What's women in entrepreneurship for you?
Women in entrepreneurship,
Or women in entrepreneurship? How do you see those two worlds coming together?
It's a tricky question. For me, it's everything is the same actually. And it's hard to talk about, to separate them, like women and entrepreneurship. For me, it's the same. But we have a situation, of course, globally that aren't equal. And I do travel a lot. We're launching the companies worldwide, and of course, I see that it's not equal around the world. So that's why, you can read my blog in English, in French, in German, in Arabic, just to be able to reach more women outside from Sweden. So I can tell, you can be divorced, you can have 2 small children, you can have your companies anyway. So I think the question is that you need role models.
Yep.
And maybe I can be one of them.
Yes. Yeah. And what is sort of the role of the role model from your point of view? Is it to sort of show how it's done and sort of show the way, or is it to create the ecosystem for women to be more included?
For me, there's a lot of women creating companies, but they're still very, very small. They're usually, one employee. It's only themselves, or they have like a small turnover. Being a woman that have a turnover over 100 miljoner Swedish kronor.
10 million euros?
Yeah, that's quite not so common. No. So it's important for me to grow fast, so I can show that, if you want to impact the world as a woman, you have to be bigger. You have to take in money in your companies, you have to grow fast. So not only be the small entrepreneur, you have to be big, you have to think big, you have to think global from the first time. And women, they are quite, sorry to say, not so good at it. I'm taking a lot of risks all the time. Just standing here is a risk. Maybe I say something stupid, I think women quite, they want to have control of everything. But it's important for me just to show you, just try, go out and try. I've started 12 companies. 8 of them, they were, they didn't work. I was lost so much money. And I think a normal person, when they have 8 failures, maybe, they're thinking, maybe I should do something else. But I was starting my 9th company until the 10th.
But it's interesting because if you look at the statistics now, it's only 4% of all companies that are ever started, now I'm speaking about the Nordics, not the world, that make more than 500,000 euros after 3 years. And 0.4% of them make 10 million euros. So I think entrepreneurship is hard, but women have it harder because of equality. Now I want to sort of move out of sort of from the equality discussion to the entrepreneurship discussion and come to you, Larry. So you started Wikipedia. And you were very humble saying it was good, but I think I can create more impact. Where do you get that energy from? What sort of keeps you going?
I guess mostly just a sense of responsibility. I don't know how to answer that question.
Or rather, what is the responsibility you feel?
Well, I feel like I inflicted this thing on the world, and it's created a lot of problems. I think it's created perhaps as many problems as it solved, actually. Yeah, I guess one of the things that I've learned as an adult is simply that you have a responsibility to do what you can in the world, and if if I'm a co-founder of Wikipedia, that actually gives me, an opportunity to solve problems that perhaps other people don't have.
And you spoke a little bit about how you're changing that with Everypedia, right? How you want to sort of create the greater wiki. How much of it is influenced by the lessons from Wikipedia, and how much of it is sort of, let's create something from the scratch?
That's a good question. I mean, I would say that partly the vision of the founders is addressed to problems with Wikipedia, but they aren't the problems that I saw, and yet by working with the guys and actually observing Everpedia grow, I've actually come to see that they actually had their fingers on problems with Wikipedia that I didn't really fully appreciate. One of them is just simple design issues with Wikipedia. It's kind of stuck in an early 2000s design mentality, and it's very difficult to persuade a whole bunch of people with independent judgment to have a consensus to change, and that basically is how Everpedia works, not Everpedia, how Wikipedia works.
Yeah.
So that's one problem, so Everpedia has a more modern design and sensibility. It just looks better, and it's a lot easier to use. And then another problem is that Wikipedia has restrictions on what can be written about. So you can't have an article about yourself if you're not sufficiently notable.
No, not your left thumb, definitely.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people who would love to have articles about themselves, and they are notable within their fields, and yet they can't because, they don't rise up to the level, whatever it is, and
Yeah.
that's annoying. And basically, we should all be able to have articles about ourselves, and when we do, that actually changes the nature of the project. And I think it actually, having seen Everpedia work, I think it actually changes it for the better. It makes it more open, more friendly, less snooty. So.
I understand. I mean, how many of you listened to Larry's talk? You spoke a lot about the greater wiki, and you spoke about the perspectives. Now, Bella spoke about the perspective of a woman and having a role model. You spoke about the perspective of being a Muslim and editing an Everpedia page about jihad. How do you see that playing out with the polarized world that we live in today?
Can you repeat the question?
How do you see the greater wiki playing out with the polarized world we live in today? You spoke about how Muslims are, you can look at the liberal Muslim view, you can look at the conservative Muslim view, you can look at the women view, the man view.
That's right. I actually think that it's going to help solve a lot of the divisions that we see in a globalized society. I mean, one of the main reasons why there is so much conflict, not war so much. War is actually something that, to a great extent, we've licked, Syria notwithstanding. But there are a lot of interpersonal conflict. Practical, psychological civil war in the United States is due to that old adage: familiarity breeds contempt, right? I actually think the problem, though, is that we see the worst in others by basically what happens is we post memes and unflattering articles and so forth about our opponents, political, religious, whatever they might be. and essentially demonizes them, and that's terrible. But we're not getting their best point of view.
No.
Well, what happens if we have a competition, basically a global competition, to create the best explanation of, to take the example again, jihad, as determined by ratings by different groups of people?
Yeah.
Right? So you could actually compare side by side the traditional Muslim article or the top rated article by traditional Muslims about jihad versus a liberal Muslim view versus a Catholic view versus a Protestant, who knows, right? And you put it all together, I think that will actually truly enlighten the world, especially if there's a competition involved. And
there's an incentive. There's a need to express. Is that? Yeah. But I'm back to you. I'm going to come to you, Christian, in a second. But I'm back to you, Bella, again. And you've been blogging and being an influencer for a long time. You've experienced a lot of net hate. You've experienced a lot of trolls, I'm sure. What's your view on how blockchain and what Larry is saying? You see different perspectives from different people. You see sort of people being a lot more understanding of each other. Do you think that's something that's needed in the world you live in?
From my perspective, is I think for me it's the opposite way. You more that I could be transparent to my readers, they are more nice to me back. I think being such big for 13 years, the secret behind that is to be transparent and to show all the sides of me, show all the sides of building companies, and when you are that, I think they are more nice back. And about how to connect blockchain with that, I'm so proud of being to start companies in Sweden. Because of the high trust that we have, it's quite easy. If we do an agreement, we know that the other part is going to fulfill it. We can almost, only have a handshake, and we know that, this is going to be enough. Now, when we're doing business in Riyadh, in Dubai, in Hong Kong, it's harder for us to know that the thing that we are, deciding is, is going to work out. So I think the trust part is going to help us to make better and greater companies. It's going to make everything much easier.
So it's interesting, right? So you have trust that's becoming an important word. You have perspectives that, Larry, you're saying is important. How many of you, just a quick question, show of hands, if you can turn on the lights here, there on the audience, how many of you think we live in a polarized world? Put your hands up. Okay. So how many of you think you would appreciate more newer perspectives about things that are happening in society? So let's say immigration in Sweden. How many of you think you need more newer perspectives to change that racist uncle you have? Okay. How many of you find it hard to do business outside Sweden because of lack of trust? Interesting. So, Christian, you've been banging your head on Bitcoin and blockchain for a long time, and I'm sure you faced a lot of criticism, a lot of closed doors, and some here we are, yeah. So, take us through sort of your journey on how it all started.
My journey, it's been quite interesting. I mean, finding Bitcoin as an open source currency, and for me, open source is a value I really appreciate, and collaboration. I mean, I love Wikipedia, and blockchain is the next step of that. You just, in a way, put transparency and trust together online. So it's awesome. I can't even imagine where we will be in 10, 15 years.
How did it all start, though? Was it just an evening when you were coding and you found Bitcoin? Because I know there's a funny story behind it, so I want you to say it.
Well, actually, it started by I was living with my at that time girlfriend, and I had an old computer. I threw it away in the garbage. They have like garbage room, and I found like beautiful glasses. It's like, why did anyone throw away these beautiful glasses? And I thought to myself, that's a waste. So I had another idea. I wanted to start an online flea market, because flea markets are not so digital. But then I came to the bank, and they said it's not possible to transact peer-to-peer transaction, but we could do some Visa card and we'll charge you a lot of money for it, and it didn't work. So I was quite upset and said, the banks are not here to solve my problem. They're here to earn money on me. So I went to, and I'm a computer nerd, so I went to this free open source software meeting in a basement in Östermalm, and I just said like, oh, I don't like the banks. What options do we have? Let's start a new currency. And I'm like, have you heard about Bitcoin? I was like, no, what's that? And then I read up about open source money. So, and that was 7 years ago. And I was like, wow, I really, for me, it was a gift. And my job or responsible I took was to give this gift to the rest of the world, or to at least to Sweden. And that's what I've been doing for the last 7 years now, trying to get people to understand the pure value of a transparent and open, free.
Is it true that the rumor is that you mined a lot of bitcoins, and there are many millions that went away because you gave it away to friends? And
I have I've given away hundreds of bitcoin, even to my mother.
It's good to have friends, huh? It's good to have friends like this too. But back to you, sort of what you've been in this industry with BTCX, which was what were the learnings from there? Being a little early in Europe, especially in Sweden, when the ecosystem was just starting up, and how do you sort of see? There are two questions here. What was the learnings from BTCX, and how do you see the transition that you're doing yourself from the Bitcoin world into more logistical blockchain? Or
I think the biggest learning I made was the polarization, because when I started BTCX and Bitcoin, I was like really against the banking system, the financial system. I didn't like it. They have monopoly on something everyone is depending on. But after working with this, and I realized, no, but the banks are giving their gift. They're really doing an important job. Without the banks, we wouldn't be able to do what we do with the finance today. So I think I went from polarization to harmonization. So now I see that it's you don't need to polarize things to change them. The best thing is actually to be grateful for what you have, and then, but now we're going over here.
Are they paying you to say that?
No, they're not. But you can apply that to any thing you dislike, basically. Try to be more grateful, and actually, when you are more grateful, it's easier to do business.
the hippie in him is coming out, so you know. Being more grateful. That's an important value, though, and I think it's interesting that how values like you spoke about being more open and transparent. You're speaking about being grateful. How these values somehow seems to be forgotten, and it's coming up in pockets again through technology. Is that weird or is that interesting? How's technology driving being grateful?
Interesting question.
What's your view, Larry? How is technology making us more grateful? Is it making us more grateful because of what's happening with blockchain? And are we sort of giving back more and caring for the world more?
It's interesting.
When I was being grateful about the technology, when I was 15, I went to my bank and I wanted to buy stocks, and they said, you're too young, you can't do that, do this, and I wanted to invest in other companies, and I couldn't do that either. But today you can be a girl in India or in China, and through an ICO, you can you can be younger than 18. You can scan the whole world for new investments and go early in. So that's my way to be grateful for technology. You don't have to be, your bank doesn't have to decide everything. You can just do whatever you want in the age of what you want, and you can live wherever you want.
You're connecting gratefulness to opportunity, really.
Yes, exactly.
So you have more opportunities to try, and I guess technology is making that easier.
Yes.
You had.
I think the reason that I'm having trouble answering the question is that basically we swim in technology now, and it's kind of hard to be grateful for the medium that you're swimming in, right? I suppose we are constantly expressing gratitude, when we like things, and social media and share things and so forth. Like if you want something shared by me, I will express my gratitude if you just tag me in a tweet. It's like I'm really easy that way. Like you tag me, I'm going to retweet it.
Buying gratitude.
Yeah.
You were speaking a little bit when we were speaking earlier today. You were speaking a little bit about the technology and how you're passionate about the technology as well. What makes you passionate about the technology?
What makes the what?
What makes you passionate about the technology?
About blockchain in particular.
Yes.
The fact that it is decentralized, actually. There's more to it than that, obviously. It's not the only feature of blockchain, but the thing that makes it potentially powerful and different from a lot of other technologies, apart from the fact that it's transparent and therefore it can serve as a public ledger, is the fact that it's not actually, the ledger is not in control of any one entity. Or at least that's the theory.
Yeah,
that's the promise.
Yes.
That's actually the thing that gets me out of bed, gets me excited about the new startup that I'm working on. I mean, because I got excited about blockchain precisely because it is a good technology to solve a problem, to actually implement the kind of decentralized encyclopedia network that I think needs to exist. I'm not actually that interested in the money part.
No.
Yeah, it's like I came around from a totally different angle.
I understand. And do you think that with this new technology, with this decentralized technology, there's a higher chance that Everypedia or a project like that becomes much more impactful than Wikipedia?
Yeah. Oh well, absolutely. I think the difficulty that I see with Wikipedia, I'll just repeat what I said, an hour ago. The difficulty that I see with it is that it's one limited community, and it is decentralized in the sense that you don't have to seek anyone's permission to contribute to Wikipedia, and that's a great thing, and it was new and radical even in 2001, but it's pretty old hat now, and I think we need to take the decentralization even further and basically make it possible for people to contribute to the world's most followed encyclopedia network without having to interact with Wikipedians, basically. Why should I have to, if I'm a real expert in some subject, then why should I have to negotiate with Wikipedians in order to work on the top ranked article on a subject according to Google? And I think that the decentralization of blockchain makes that possible, basically.
Interesting. Christian, you've been involved in the community and of both here and in Europe. What's the driving force behind the community of Bitcoin and blockchain here, as you see? Is it to make money, opposite to what Larry says? Is it the technology? Is it just curious people who hate the banks?
From the last journey on the people I've spoken with, the most passionate and driven entrepreneurs. Money is part of it, but it's almost always the willingness or the vision to change something. I mean, this data mining guys, it was like the frustration with Facebook and Google. Like, we have tons of information, our personal information out there, and someone else is monetizing on it. It's not fair, right? And you don't have any control over it. GDPR will help that a little bit, but how do we do that practically? And there, Bitcoin blockchain has a perfect solution. And these guys, I mean, they're young, they're smart, they want to do something together with their friends, and they have an idea. So I think, and that was like for me also 7 years ago. I had an idea, I had a vision, like, oh, I really want to do this. Every time a morning I woke up, I was like, bang, straight doing it. And I think you have to have that as an entrepreneur, because some days it's raining and snowing at the same time, and why go out?
Swedes and weather metaphors continuous.
Yeah, and the car is.
And Bella, what's sort of your view? How involved are you with sort of what's happening in blockchain, and where do you get your information from, and what are your sources?
I'm so happy to work with my team in Nordic Tech House. They're such a smart women and men. They're coming. We have one woman from South Korea, another guy from Albania. They are so smart, and we have a new the new company that we're going to work with now is called Crypto Consinity.
They're here as well, huh?
Yeah, we have a. Yeah, are you here? No, maybe
Oh,
somewhere.
they're outside selling and hustling.
Yeah, of course. Good. But I think, you know, as an investor, can be able to help the smart people with great ideas like Crypto Consinity. And the idea behind it is it's a payment platform where we can transform your cryptocurrency into fiat, the new word I learned.
Uh-huh.
And so it's because it's very hard. So yeah, you have a platform. You can have your cryptocurrency. We can make it into normal money, so you can buy things from it. So it's a connoisseur service. So if you want, you know, if you want to buy a Porsche or a Ferrari or a laptop from Mac or something, whatever you want to buy, we can help you with that transform.
So it's service on top of the infrastructure.
Yeah, so it's a very big risk to invest in an application or a service right now, because everything is about to change all the time. But I do believe in this kind of platform. And this company is a great way to try the technique behind the platform, because it's few orders, but every order has a higher value. So we are already profitable in this early stage. So it's going to be very fun to follow the journey.
I heard the best way to learn about new things is to invest in 10 companies and see how they work. That's what one of the famous investors called Fred Wilson does. He just keeps investing and sees what makes sense, and he keeps learning from there. I want to open up the floor for more questions. Anybody that has questions? We have a runner that runs, I think. Yes? Questions? There's one from there, and then we'll come to you. Yeah. Hi.
Hello, thank you very much for the presentations. It was very, very much interesting. So I have one question about the nature of decentralized technology. Like, the main problem that I see is that people are not used to rely on themselves. They are used to having some sort of institution like government or bank that's going to take care of them. And let's say when with Bitcoin, with the blockchain, when you give people freedom to take care of their own assets, to their own money, you also give them back the responsibility of their money, right? Which means when you lose your private key to the wallet, there is no way back. I mean, you cannot just contact bank and reset your password. Your money is lost, and that's your fault. So this is what I think is probably the main problem with taking it to the mainstream market. So I'm interested. What do you think could be the solution for that?
Interesting. So if I repeat the question in a shorter way, so decentralization puts a lot of power in the hands of the individual. How do we manage that? How do we control that? What happens in the worst case scenario? Do you want to start?
Yeah, so there's actually a scenario where you are in control of your key, and that's your house key and your car key. And so one way to actually get people used to it is to give them a physical representation of your crypto key, and that has worked very well. The other solution is that you actually choose a institution that take care of your keys, and that could be the banking. I mean, before the banks had this bank vault where you put your gold and jewelry and contracts, and it could be in the future they have this vault where you put your crypto keys, and they ensure that they will not lose it.
Larry, what's your view?
So the question is, how do we manage the problem that there is, that decentralization empowers the individual? Is that
What happens in the worst case scenario when an individual sort of loses his private key or her private key?
Right.
And they have no institution to rely on. They have the power and the trust is entirely on.
That obviously is, I mean, I would defer to this man here, but generally, I think that is a problem that's going to be solved. It will have to be solved, yeah, doing it in a way that doesn't radically empower some central organization and keeps the networks properly decentralized, I think is going to be a trick. But yeah, it's clearly that, I mean, that's a perfect kind of problem for the market to solve. It'll be solved.
So the answer is trust the system. We
Thank you
have
very
one
much.
more question here in the front. Do we have a mic? Yes. Yes, perfect. Here in the front, right here.
Thank you. Hi. So my question is, we need more people in blockchain, and it's a global technology, and we need as many perspectives involved in its creation. You know, like, and you know, half the population are women, but only a small minority of women are involved in blockchain right now. And why do you think this is? And what can we as individuals do to get more women and other underrepresented groups involved?
So women and underrepresented groups in blockchain, what do we do?
You have people like me standing here. You know, you can tweet about it. I'm here. But of course, we need more women. We need them to have the courage to stand on this kind of stage, to talk about it, to be on events about blockchain. We have to. I think, you know, I have the biggest on Facebook. We have the biggest aktiegrupp.
Shareholders group.
Yeah, we have the biggest aktiegrupp on Facebook for women. It's 150,000 women that are buying and selling stocks every day. And I think I started that 2 years ago because there were not so many women that was, you know, working as a day traders. So we wanted to have more. So we invited them. We had like a closed group only for women, so you can ask all the stupid questions. And so I think, you know, you need a group that starts starts with it and invite their friends and like role models, as I said from the beginning. So maybe do this, but maybe only for women. If I'm going to be honest, I hate when you separate genders. But in the beginning, maybe you have to, so you can have all the questions from the beginning. So maybe like a blockchain event. We were talking about that for a couple of months ago to do something together. So maybe we should do that.
I mean, they had that in New York. They had this meetup just for women, and it was great. I wasn't there, but
you weren't?
I had a wig. But I mean, we could also see the statistics from BTCX. When we started, we basically had like less than 1% women, but now we're closing to 10%. I mean, 10% is still not much, but we have been doubling the amount of women in our user base each year. So there's a change going on.
Yeah.
So
Wonderful.
But I think also it's right now. In the future, we wouldn't have this kind of that it's not equal. You know, I see at my children's preschool, they're learning developing, programmering. And my daughter, she's 3. So, you know, she's having that in her like DNA from the beginning. But it's going to take some while.
Wonderful. Start early, find role models, and get more people to get more women congregations together. So, Ivan, where are you? There you are.
I'm
Do you
here.
want me to run on Indian Standard Time and keep going, or do you want to come up and continue the show?
So, I mean, right after this, we have Zilika. And
Yeah.
I think it's time for Zilika
Yeah.
to take the stage.
Wonderful. Then I'll say
So-
thank you to our panelists then.
Thank you to panelists, but no one is leaving without gifts. We have gifts for everyone, treasures, the sponsors of the show. So, Isabella, here you go. If you want to store your Bitcoin cryptocurrencies, use this hardware wallet. Christian, hardware wallet.
Thank you. I already have this. So the one asking the question, how do you store your crypto key? Come to the stage and you can have one.
Wonderful.
Larry, here you
Wonderful.
go.
I'll do the same.
Thank you.
Mahesh, well.
I've already got one.
Thank you, guys. Thank you very much.